All right. That barking can only mean one thing, and that's you've come to another episode of the Rocker Dog Podcast, the show that talks to musicians about the greatness of dogs. I'm your host, Tim Dill, along with my dog of 7 years, Charlie, and today it's our pleasure to bring you our conversation with Janet Weiss, who's provided the backbeat for the likes of Sleater-Kinney, Malkmus and The Jicks, Bright Eyes, The Shins, and her longtime band Quasi. And this is her emotionally intuned rocker dog.
We're talking about my 7-year-old blue heeler named Dizzy. He looks like a mix. When I got him at a rescue, I thought he was a mix. He has long hair. Mm-hmm. But supposedly he has the long hair gene. So any breed of any dog can have a long hair gene and make them look kind of crazy. So he's got like soft long hair where most heelers do not.
Okay.
That's my guy Dizzy.
And when did you get him?
I got him, so he's just turned 7. I got him when he was 6 months old from a place here in Portland, a rescue called Oregon Dog Rescue. I had been looking. I had a 14-year-old heeler mix who was nearing the end of his life, and I wanted the new dog to meet him. He was kind of my soul dog, I guess they call him. Mm-hmm. And so I was keeping my eyes open, and then I saw Dizzy's little ad on Instagram, his little picture. And I rushed down there the next morning and got there like an hour before they opened. And there were 2 people ahead of me already. And I was too nervous during that whole hour to ask them who they were there to see. I just was like, his name was Thomas at the time. And I was just thinking to myself, I hope they're not here to see Thomas. I hope they're not here to see Thomas. And they opened the front doors and we got up to the counter. And they asked for some other dog, and I was so relieved. So I already had a feeling at that point, like, this could be the one, even though I had looked at a lot of dogs.
Yeah. Now, are you talking about Mac? Was Mac your previous
Mac was
dog?
my previous dog. He was some kind of heeler mix. He was big. He was like 65 pounds. Another rescue. And my dog that I had before him, I had the 2 of them at the same time, but she had terrible separation anxiety. From the minute I got her at the Humane Society. So eventually I looked for a second dog to kind of see if that would work, keeping her company. And Mac was the dog that I chose. And he ended up really helping me a lot in my life by taking care of the first dog. So then when I thought, oh, I'm not sure I can handle Mac passing without having another dog in place. Right. So I got Dizzy, and my relationship with Dizzy is very different from my relationship with Mac, which I find interesting.
How so?
Mac was like when he was 5 when I got him, so he was fully formed. He was very kind of mature, like I guess they would say like an old soul. I don't know, know what that means, except that he wasn't very childlike or puppy-like at all. No puppy behaviors. He was just a full-grown, like I like to say he was my equal. And Dizzy is more like my child, like my baby, I raised him, and he's very like boyish and kind of silly and goofy and really, really sweet in ways that Mac was not. Mac really only wanted to be around me. He didn't care about anybody else. Where Dizzy has his people who he really adores. And yeah, it's amazing that these relationships are so rich, and deep and different.
Yeah. Well, it's funny as you mentioned Mac being your equal, I almost thought you were going to say he was almost parental to you, because I know when you're in the arts and when you're in music, sometimes you have this Peter Pan syndrome. Was that ever the case?
I wouldn't say that, no. Right. But more like he actually like helped me, take care of Isobel, who was the dog who was had a lot of anxiety, and
Mm-hmm.
she was very wild, and it was hard to like really bond with her because she was such a dog.
Right.
And where he came along and had these sort of more human kind of traits, like he would just, it seemed like he was really listening to
Right.
me and
Right.
and able to understand how I was feeling, which is hard to explain to someone who isn't. Hopefully everyone listening is like a dog person,
Yeah.
so they're like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
she's not a crazy person, I
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
that.
No. Did Isobel have a background that kind of fed into that kind
No
of,
clue.
okay. And
I
she was,
just
I
I
assume she
picked
was a rescue as well?
got her at the Humane Society, had picked her out from a photo. I was on tour, and my friend went and met her and was sending me video of her. And in the shelter, it's hard to tell when a dog's in the
Yeah.
shelter. She seemed very calm, and there were no clues, or no clues that I understood at the time of what was to come. I came back from tour. She actually had kennel cough. So I had to wait 2 weeks while she was on antibiotics, and I would go and sit with her, just sit at the cage at the Humane Society at the kennel, and she would come over, and she was very sweet. She seemed independent, which she definitely was. But the first night when I got her home, I like ran to the store, to the pet store to get something. And yeah, she destroyed my house
Oh my
basically.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
She scratched down to the subfloor
Oh my
and
gosh.
scratched the molding on the, yeah, it was severe. And it wasn't like she was attached to me,
Yeah.
because it was just from day one.
Yeah.
She just didn't want to be in a house by herself. I couldn't manage to crate train her. And I actually called and they said, we think you should bring her back. They said, bring her back on Saturday. And this was like Tuesday. And I thought about it, and there's just no way I was going to like return her,
Yeah.
So I made the commitment, and it definitely taught me a lot about myself and made me face some things about how I dealt with my own anxiety. And it just was it was a massive learning experience, but it was really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how long transpired between Isabel and Mac?
So it was like a year where Isabel
Okay.
she had a therapist, she was
Okay.
on meds, you know, she I would have babysitters for her. She was fine when there were other dogs around.
All
I
right.
would borrow friends' dogs to come over and be with
Yeah.
her. So I was just kind of trying everything. And then because she loved dogs so much, I thought maybe if I got a second dog. But Isabel's therapist said, like, well, you shouldn't get a puppy because she might imprint on the puppy. You have to get a dog who's very confident. So that's why eventually I found Mac, who was like basically, the most confident like being you could imagine.
I love that.
Yeah, and it worked out. And she was still anxious, but I could leave them in the house, and I kind of got my life back.
Now, how about the healer breed? Aren't they known for high energy, high intelligence, need to be stimulated both physically and mentally? Was that ever a challenge for you?
I love it. I love the breed. I feel like it's the only breed I am ever going to have, which may or may not be true. There are things about them that make the challenges totally worthwhile. Like they're incredibly engaged with you,
Hmm.
and they're just looking to you for, engagement. Like, give me a job. I want to
Yeah.
work. They're not, extremely couch potatoy, but I'm not really either. So
Hmm.
I don't watch a lot of TV. I mean, he wouldn't mind if I sat on the couch, but I'm not sure he would sit with me. He
Yeah.
would probably be in his spot. He respects my space, which, I mean, these are things like you learn about yourself. Like, I don't like getting massages, like I'm not that like touchy-feely, and like a pit bull kind of breed that would be like on me.
Yep. Yep.
Um, would be a lot for me to handle. Like, I love the healer just looking at me. We're looking at each other, we're like, what's next? Like, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And it allows me to be creative with him, like figuring out ways to like what enrichment, for
Yeah.
him, which is really
Yeah.
important for a healer. Although he is calmer in the house than a lot of healers. I feel like I paid my dues with like Isobel. I mean, she was terrified of fireworks.
Oh,
She
I can
was
imagine.
stressed in the car. She would put her head like right here. She would stand and she would, I called it turbo pant. She would
Right.
just turbo pant. Like she was so nervous. Turbo pant. And then she would yip sometime and it would just startle me. Dizzy rides in a crate in the car, like a soft crate, and he
Uh-huh.
just goes in, he just hops in, lays down, goes to sleep. He's very easy in a lot of ways. He's not afraid of fireworks, which is a dream come true. I mean,
Hmm.
it used to be so traumatizing, like
Yeah,
getting
I
in
can
the
imagine.
closet with the fan and all the radios in the house and the record
Oh my
players are
God.
all
That's crazy.
I know. I mean, it gets pretty wild here around Fourth of July. It's
I,
a lot of fireworks.
I can imagine, and I'm not a fan of fireworks. But there's I can break down my outline to talking to you into three categories. And one thing you just brought up about you're not content sitting around. We've got. I'd like to talk about the Drum-a-thon. I'd like to talk about the
Okay.
drumhead portraits, and I'd
Hmm.
also like to talk about your car accident briefly. And let's start
Okay.
there, just because that's a time when you are immobilized and not as active as you could be. How was the dog? And it was Dizzy with you at the time?
Yeah, so Dizzy was young. I got him in August of 2018, I believe. And then the accident was a year later
Right.
in August of 2019. So he was still a young, a little over a year and a half. He was still pretty young. And he's very emotionally in tuned, like as I think most healers are. For instance, if I'm watching a basketball game and I'm getting excited, and like cheering, both Mac and Dizzy are bothered. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, they think something's wrong. So they come over and they seem very worried, and I have to like tone it down. If there's any discussion that's heated at all, Dizzy he's very nervous and comes over and is trying to like make me feel better. So I broke both my legs and my collarbone, and one of my legs needed surgery. That the surgeon like came into the ER and said like, okay, I'm going to do this surgery and you're going to be non-weight bearing on your leg for what did he say, 12 weeks. I was like, wait a minute, hang on a second, 12 weeks, that's 3 months. Like, wait, 3 months? So it was 3 months in a wheelchair or in like a hospital bed in the living room.
Right.
So Dizzy, I mean, I think I made a post on Instagram of all of the photos I had taken of Dizzy like laying on my legs. It just must have been so hard for him because he seemed worried,
Right.
and I hired dog walkers to come and take him for walks, but they said like we can't get him to go. Like he stops and he wants to go back. Like it's a very like caretakery breed. They want to make sure you're okay. So it was hard for him, and
Yeah.
it was hard for me, and therefore it's going to naturally be hard for him. But I think just my being so uncomfortable, it's just deeply uncomfortable for months on end, was stressful for him. And when I actually started to be able to walk again, first on crutches and then slowly able to walk, I had to like retrain him because he was like, I've been doing it all on my own here for 3 months. And, what do you mean? Like, calm down. Or what do you mean sit? Or what do you mean?
Yeah.
I had to just assert my, like, oh, I'm back, and, the order between us can
Yeah.
resume. But it did take some time for him to get used to that again.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to the Drum-a-thon, which
Okay.
I'll give a little bit of the lay of the land from what I know. January 7th with the LA fires. That went on for weeks and weeks. But literally 3 weeks later, January 28th, you put on a 24-hour drum-a-thon benefiting One Tail at a Time. And that's a rescue local to you that was going to help with the relocation of the animals in LA. And you ended up raising over $20,000 in 24 hours, which is amazing. You had Britt Daniel from Spoon, you had Patty Schemmel of Whole, Fred Armisen, and a host of others join you. How did this come about?
So just to be clear, we weren't relocating the dogs who were involved in the fire. So the biggest issue after the fires happened was that there were all these displaced dogs who needed a place to go. Just like people needed a place to go. They couldn't go home. Their humans didn't know where they were, or they weren't resettled yet in a new place. So they were trying to clear the LA shelters of the dogs who were already there.
Right.
So, and it was a massive effort because the LA shelters are notoriously packed and overflowing, and they euthanize a lot of dogs down there. So the idea was to try to raise money, not only for, we were also raising money for the usual channels of dogs that OTAT rescue that I volunteer a lot at, and they get a lot of their dogs from West Texas, where there's a sister organization, and they get dogs from the shelters here. And so the idea was, let's raise money for all three of these really important dog saving efforts.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just thought it had to be something, there's so much crazy stuff on the internet.
Right.
Like, I wanted it to be something that was like a dare, that I would be sacrificing something, and that would be fun to watch. That would involve my friends, my musician friends, and that would be community building. I wanted to raise more than just like a couple $100. So I really thought about it, like, what can I do? I thought it was going to be, I had the idea of a 24-hour drum solo. And then that just seemed incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I even going to play for that long? And I wanted to talk to people more than anything. I wanted to talk to people. And Julie Zagrins, who runs OTAT Portland, she called it a drum-a-thon, just like in an email. And I was like, that's what it should be. And then I started watching the Jerry Lewis telethon, which, is from my childhood.
Yeah.
I started watching those and kind of getting the idea of we have guests and people come in, or maybe we'll have we had this primetime show where I played drums on cover songs with all these different Portland people, musicians. And then I have a lot of friends who live in other places, other musicians who live in other towns. So we did virtual kind of conversations with them. They weren't just drummers. It was there were a few songwriter, guitarists in there. But it was very life affirming, I have to say. I made a framework of what would happen, and then we just did it. I had a lot of support from One Tail at a Time, Portland, and, my people, my sister and my partner, Drew, helped out. My bandmate, Sam from Quasi, everyone in my circle really stepped up because they were like, oh, well, if it's kind of if you're staying up for 24 hours, I can come in and do an interview. I purposefully made it something that I was going to do the harder thing. So people were like, yeah, I could do this easy thing, you know?
Yeah.
And almost everyone I asked said yes. There were a few no's, but most everyone that I asked to do it.
It's okay, let's hear the no's.
No. I'll never tell. But there were a few, people who just weren't comfortable, being, it was very unscripted. I had no idea what it was going to be like. I really didn't know. And it's all actually on my Instagram. You can go kind of watch, of course you can just watch it in bits and pieces, but it was really fun. And we made actually over $23,000.
That's amazing. Did you have a goal in mind? Were you thinking more modestly?
Well, my goal was 10,000.
Okay, that's great.
And Julie from OTAT was like, I think we can make 20. And then when Fred showed up, and we were getting close to 20. And I think he was so hilarious that his performance kind of put, and then he actually asked at the very end, how much do you need to make your goal? And it was like couple $100 or something. He's like, okay, and he just wrote a check. It was awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I did catch it live, and I got to say it was such a great idea, and it was great to check in throughout the 24 hours. And I hate to say it, it was great to wake up in the morning and still be in bed and log in and see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the dog drumhead portraits.
Okay.
Great idea, very beautiful artwork, very bold and high contrast.
I have one here. Do you want to see one? Yeah. I just finished it.
Oh yeah, well that's great.
That's Lemmy and Bunk.
And
I'm not like a real painter, so this came about, like, musicians know it's hard to make money. And I decided that I would rather not have my whole existence relying on my band or my musical endeavors. It just got too stressful, and the way that I enjoy doing music, I don't want to sacrifice the integrity of the music and the process to make money at it.
Right.
So I was brainstorming, what do I love? I love dogs. I love drums. What can I do? And then my friend Kathy Foster, who I've played music with, she has a band called Roseblood that I played drums in. I think she said like something about like, I had designed a t-shirt or something with a dog. And she's like, you should put it on a drum head or something. And I was like, oh, like maybe I could do, so I actually at first I made not portraits, but I made a dog design and a horse design. And they're like, when I look at them now, I'm like, oh, these are so easy. Why didn't I stick with these? But I did the dog and the horse. And then I would do them all different colors and I would sell them. It's mostly fans buying my drum heads. And then I put one little sentence at the bottom that said, hey, I'm maybe considering like doing commissions. If you're interested, let me know. And then nobody wanted the dog and the horse. Everyone wanted their own pet.
Was that an instant, like, as soon as you sent that out, was it like 40 people want custom?
Yes. It was like, nobody wants these other ones. I still have some in my basement. If anybody wants one, let me know. I'll just send it to you for free. But yeah, so all of a sudden I'm like I'm a dog and cat portrait artist with no idea how to do it. I mean, the learning curve was very steep. I started out incredibly simple. The earlier ones look really different from the ones I'm doing now. And it's just been like this crazy journey of like, I'm a pet portrait artist. I'm a pet portraitist. Just out of the idea of like, I'd love to make a little extra money. It turns out they take me so long to make that like, it's basically like making minimum wage, but I love doing it. And I feel like I'm getting better at it, which feels good. And people they're so happy, and it's cool to see a drum head with the person's dog on it or cat on it.
Yeah. How many have you done?
It's like this many.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 times 7.
7, yeah, 84.
Yeah. So I'm in the 80s.
That's amazing. Well, I conclude every show with what I call the Zoomies, and that's 5 fast, frivolous questions.
Okay.
The first is, do you allow your dogs to lick your face?
Yes.
Okay. That's the correct answer. Question 2, let's use Dizzy. Does Dizzy have a theme song?
He does. Yes, he has a theme song. I have 2 sisters, and the 3 of us have our own theme songs that my dad made up. So Drew made up a theme song for Dizzy in the style of the Weiss family theme song.
Okay.
But I don't think I can sing it, but he does have one.
Does the Weiss family theme song cop another melody?
No, there's 3 separate melodies for each kid.
Okay.
And it's in like the style of like a kind of like the organ grinder. Yeah, kind of sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Don't make me do it.
I won't. I mean, there's times I argue with myself afterwards. I'm like, they're performers. Make them perform. But I couldn't put if the shoe was on the other foot. Okay, moving on. Question 3. If the dog did tour with you, what would they want on their tour rider? So, for instance, let's use Dizzy.
Well, Dizzy's number one love is the tennis ball. So much so that he has to be like, he's like a crackhead with the tennis ball. Like he has to, we can't have balls in the house. Like
Yeah.
it's his. So if he had his own rider, if he rode it, it would be tennis balls. He loves toys more than bones, although he does love a bully stick. So bully sticks, toys, and number one would be balls of any kind, but mostly tennis balls.
Okay, I love that. It's like pen number 4, tennis balls.
Yes.
All right. Question 4 is, do you have a dog voice?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's higher. Yeah, it's Dizzy. It's how I talk to Dizzy.
Okay.
He understands it, but I think it's mostly the tone of it. I hope I never hear myself doing it. I'm sure it's totally insufferable to others, but I have noticed Drew kind of taking on the dog voice, which I find completely endearing. Like, because I know it's my, like, I did it to him,
Yeah.
but why not?
Yeah. I love it. Well, the part B of that question is, do you channel it? Do you ever give the dogs a voice? Like, do you humanize them? What would they sound like humanized?
I don't, but
Okay.
one of Dizzy's favorite people who takes care of Dizzy sometimes, and she's like a dog trainer, she does put where she says words that he would say, and it's hilarious. Like
What's
she
the
says that
personality she channels?
she says that he calls me mother, like like mother. It's time for me to go write my journal. Like he's kind of a deep. He always looks like he's deep in thought, and like he has a journal someplace that he
Yeah,
goes and writes in. But yeah, he calls us mother and father, which I find pretty funny.
that's very funny. Okay, question 5 is, would you like to shout out any of the dog services or organizations that have done good for you?
Yeah, I mean, One Tail at a Time, PDX, great nonprofit, very small DIY, volunteer base, like everybody's helping out. A lot of women involved making this thing run. I find that I've met friends there, which to me is like it's not just a dog rescue, it's also like the community that we need as people.
Yeah.
Oregon Dog Rescue, Oregon Humane Society, also places where I've gotten dogs and did a great job. I feel like dogs have it really, really good up here.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's like there's so many people that want dogs, and I hope people stop buying dogs from breeders and just go find those dogs in the shelters, because there's the dogs we got from LA. So like immediately after the Drum-a-thon, we brought up like 30 dogs from LA. And those dogs were just such great dogs. These dogs have been in shelters for months, if not years.
Yeah.
And they're like these perfect, beautiful dogs. No matter how terrible a situation is for a dog, they can still be such sweet, loving creatures, which is ultimately the lesson for us.
Amen to that. Well, Janet, you're one of these rare individuals that I see what you do, and I'm very eager to talk to you, so I'm very thankful you took the time to talk to us. Going back to 2014, when you started on Instagram, your first 3 posts are dogs. So right away I know it's like, all right, this person's in our wheelhouse. Let's get her on a Zoom. So I appreciate your time and appreciate everything you do for dogs, and you really do go above and beyond. And myself as a volunteer, we appreciate that because we know how taxing it could be sometimes.
Yeah, it's just every little bit helps, like
Yeah.
a lot of people say, oh, I don't think I could volunteer because I'm just going to fall in love with the dog and adopt it. But if you just shift your mindset a little bit and think like, I'm just the intermediary, I'm just getting the dog from being in a shelter in a terrible situation to being in a home in a fantastic situation. And it's very rewarding. You don't have to adopt them all because you're helping them get to a good place. They're not going back. They're going forward. And to be a part of that is really, really special.
Yeah, I will echo that. Every little bit does help because I know at our shelter, some people are like, well, I can't do this or I don't have this, amount of time. But it's like, if you can just come and wash a couple of bowls, that
Yeah.
helps. It's
Yeah.
great to walk the dogs. It's great to have the interaction. But we have an older couple that show up every Saturday and work on the laundry. And the laundry by Saturday is stacked to the roof. And it's such a huge help. And it's just,
Right.
Every little piece of the puzzle really does make a big difference.
And finding your own place, like what can I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being a person who's overtaxed and overwhelmed is not going to help. So you find out what if I just drove supplies across town
Yeah.
and picked up things and brought them to the shelter. Do a few of those things every now and then, and it's people are going to really appreciate it, and the dogs will appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. It was really fun.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure.
Carl, you're a damn good dog.